When I was around 9 or 10, Harry Potter, among many other movies, used to play on TV every Sunday afternoon. I did not have a taste back then or a schedule to manage, neither a streaming algorithm that knows me better than my parents did. The movies were just there, every Sunday, waiting. It felt like a reward system for surviving the week, doing all the homeworks and, regular school stuff everyone hates, and the slow realization that math was going to be a recurring problem in my life. Those hours felt untouchable. Homework could exist in the background, technically, but emotionally, it had no jurisdiction over that time. I would sit there watching Hogwarts unfold again, and somewhere between the floating candles and moving staircases, my brain reached a very reasonable conclusion that if magic was real anywhere, this felt like the place it would exist in. I didn't treat the Hogwarts letter like a metaphor. I actually believed that it would arrive for me too one day. And then I remember I turned 11 and then 12 and I was coping in denial. Maybe the Hogwarts customer service is running behind schedule. And yes, that sounds a little unhinged now, but that also explains why movies worked so well for me back then. They didn't feel like the things I was consuming, they felt like the places I was allowed to visit. Harry Potter, The Wizard of Oz, Shrek, all those Pixar movies, Lord of the Rings series. None of these movies were trying to convince me that they mattered. They were just so convincing and confident and unapologetic and sincere in what they were showing and doing that I never asked for proof. A scene would slow down in a way that felt intentional rather than dramatic, and something strange would happen. My brain would stop racing ahead, my expectations would go quiet, and I would feel that soft internal reaction. That's hard to explain without sounding dramatic. That wordless wow. It wasn't fireworks, it wasn't shock. It was the feeling that the movie had believed in itself, that it stood for a second for me to take it in. And for a long time, that feeling of wow and wonder was the feeling I associated with Hollywood. This is what Hollywood gave me consistently. The strange part is that I didn't notice the feeling had started to disappear while it was happening. There wasn't a single night where I walked out of the theater and saw the movie poster and went like, yeah, cinema is over now. Nope. If anything, it was much quieter and far more inconvenient than that. I was still going to the movies, I was still excited about them, and I kept telling myself, this one feels different. In the same tone that people use when they say that they are going to wake up early starting from Monday. And then, if I had to pinpoint one moment when it came as a realization, it was Thor: Love and Thunder. And no, this is not me picking a fight specifically with that movie. See, I was invested in MCU, not in a hype cycle way, more in a long-term relationship way. This was a universe I had grown up with, characters I've been studying and seeing and growing along with me. I had been defending, overthinking, and pretending that they were deeper than they actually were at midnight conversations with my friends. I cannot say the same thing about Thor: Love and Thunder. See, I was not angry or betrayed when it ended. I was just untouched. It felt like I was just there when the movie was happening. There was nothing in the movie that made me care enough. And when the lights turned back on, I was surprised at how unsurprised I was at the whole experience. The only two reactions I had throughout the movie were heh or huh? And that was new. And the weirder part is what came after. I didn't declare that Marvel was dead. I just stopped buying tickets for a while, and not as a protest, but more as an instinct. I just didn't feel the draw anymore. It was similar to realizing that a restaurant you love has quietly changed all the chefs. The food isn't terrible and you're not offended, but you just don't feel the urgency to go back there every weekend. You start saying things like, yeah, I'll check it out someday when I'm nearby or something. But somehow you never do. And that's when I realized something that had been at play all along. My relationship with Hollywood movies had changed. I still enjoyed them, but the overwhelming amount of excitement that I once had was now just visible in occasional glimpses here and there, if and when it was. Instead of sitting down and waiting for that involuntary wow to arrive, I started watching with that kind of emotional seatbelt always on. I braced slightly when I noticed that a moment wanted applause instead of silence. And the problem is, when you watch movies this way, even if something good happens, a part of you is already halfway out of the door, wondering how it's going to be undone later in the movie or maybe in a sequel. And maybe it was me being cynical, but I view it more as a self-protection. What's confusing is that this change didn't come with a loss of enjoyment. When I go back and watch the movies that I loved as a kid, they still hold up for me. Sometimes they land even harder now, which feels unfair because I was absolutely not qualified to appreciate them properly back then. I didn't know what blocking was and why a scene lingered, and how music composition and soundtracks worked, or how difficult it was to pull off something very simple without hiding behind technology. I just knew how they made me feel. Now, watching them again, I noticed different things. I noticed patience in the way scenes are allowed to exist without constantly trying to justify themselves. I noticed how much effort went into making these moments work emotionally, especially when the tools were limited and there was no safety net of a post-credit scene waiting to explain why this moment works for something that will happen later. There's a kind of sincerity in older films which is hard to miss once you've seen it enough times. Not sincerity as in they were better people back then, but sincerity as in commitment. The movie believed in the moment enough to stay with it. It trusted that if it slowed down, the audience wouldn't panic and reach for their phones. It trusted that wonder didn't need to be announced. Well, just think about the first time Harry flies on Buckbeak. Nothing about that scene is in a hurry. The camera doesn't cut aggressively. The music doesn't scream at you to feel something immediately. It's a slow build-up. It goes with the emotions of the scene. Moving on to this great build-up of Harry flying on Buckbeak and is free, and the music depicts it just perfectly. Well, John Williams was the composer on this one, so maybe it's not fair. But that's where that wow sneaks in. Not because something exploded, but there was enough tension and anticipation before that explosion. When I watch a lot of modern movies, I feel the opposite impulse at work. There's a sense that every moment needs to prove its importance immediately, as if the film is slightly worried that you will lose interest if it doesn't keep tapping you on the shoulder. Scenes arrive already shouting, emotional beats are introduced with the urgency of a notification you didn't ask for. And when everything is framed as monumental, your brain just stops reacting to the scale altogether. You need some darkness to see the light clearly. You need contrast in films. You need those dull moments and slow moments that build the tension, so that when the explosion and the conclusion and the resolution of that tension eventually happens, it lands. And it's not that the modern movies lack effort. If anything, they are drowning in it. The effort is just pointed in a different direction. And there's more emphasis on being impressive and cool than being sincere and honest. More concern with how the moment will play online, judging its trendworthiness, rather than how it will feel sitting quietly in a dark room. See, I have always seen movies as the medium that moves you internally, that makes you realize something. When you watch a movie that is sincere at one point of life, it means something. But then you watch that same movie at another point in your life, it means something else. And that's sincerity. I cannot say the same thing about the modern movies now. The moments that still stay with me are not the ones that tried the hardest to be memorable. They are the ones that trusted me enough to discover myself why they mattered on my own. And every time that happens, even now, I feel it again. Softer maybe and less frequent, but unmistakable. That same quiet wow. The moments that still get me now, they all have this one thing in common. They are earned. Not in a loud scoreboard sense of the word, but in a quieter way where a movie has done enough work beforehand that it doesn't need to announce what it's about to do. And you can usually feel it coming, and not in a predictable way. Well, you can predict the feeling and not the context, even if you can predict the context, if that makes sense. You can usually feel it coming, even if the movie isn't predictable, because the story has been so honest with you that the next step makes emotional sense. That's why some movies stay lodged inside your brain long after the movie has ended, even if you haven't thought about them consciously for years. Harry flying on Buckbeak works because it arrives at the exact moment when Harry needs to feel free, and we as audience need to see how happy he is when he is free. The scene is not trying to impress you with how magical the world is or how cool is it to fly on a giant hippogriff, which is very cool. It works because it focuses on how magical freedom feels to Harry. The movie understands its own character well enough to know when to step back and let emotion breathe. That feeling of wow comes from the recognition. We have been on the same journey as Harry, exploring the Wizarding world together, and we have felt all the feelings he has felt. So, the feeling of freedom that Harry feels in that moment, we do feel the same. When you see scenes like these in movies, you see something click into place, and your heart responds before your brain has time to analyze why. Iron Man's ending in Endgame works for a similar reason. Not because it's shocking, not because it's iconic in a poster-ready way, but because it closes a loop the story has been quietly building for years. It's a choice that costs something real, and the movie doesn't flinch from that cost by immediately redirecting your attention somewhere else. These are the kind of moments that leave you sitting in your seat a little longer than you expected to. Say what? Yeah, I know Robert Downey Jr. and Steve Rogers are both coming back in Avengers Doomsday. What has changed lately is how often movies seem more interested in recognition than resolution, spectacle over substance, trend over emotions, actors over characters. You can feel the scenes reaching outward, waiting for your applause, waiting for validation, waiting for you to cry, waiting for you to catch the reference before the story itself has fully landed. It can even be emotional. I love No Way Home. But when it becomes the primary emotional language of a film, something subtle starts to break. Instead of reacting to what the character is feeling, you start reacting to whether you're supposed to feel something or not. That's when that wow turns performative. Movies are all about discovering yourself through them, but this cannot be done on a cue. And the strange part is that it doesn't make your audiences less engaged, it just makes them more cautious. They wait to see if a scene is going to earn its emotion or quietly ask them to hold on to it for a future installment. That hesitation is new. It's the difference between leaning forward in your seat and leaning back with your arms crossed, thinking, okay, show me what this is actually building towards. When a movie finally commits, when it chooses story over setup, character over commentary, the reaction is still there. It just arrives with a little more relief than wonder. When a scene finally trusts itself enough, you can feel it immediately. That familiar internal response, softer than it used to be but unmistakable. Wow. I don't think nostalgia is the problem. That's the easy explanation, but it's also the lazy one. It assumes people are just stuck in the past, unwilling to accept anything new, clinging to childhood because adulthood didn't turn out the way it was marketed. Feels like trust wearing thin. Hollywood knows nostalgia works, and it keeps reaching for it, sometimes with the confidence of someone who assumes you will say yes because you always have. Old titles come back. Familiar characters reappear. Music cues are reused with surgical precision, all designed to trigger that same emotional shortcut. And for a moment, it almost works. You recognize the shape of the thing you loved, your brain lights up, the memory arrives first. Before the scene has fully earned its place, there's a flicker of that old reaction, that reflexive sense of comfort, and for half a second you think, maybe this is it, but then the moment passes. Not because the references were bad, but because the story underneath didn't do enough to support it. The nostalgia shows up early, asks for trust immediately, and the movie hasn't quite proven it deserves that trust yet. And that's where the skepticism creeps in. See, everyone wants new and refreshing stories, but we don't want them at the cost of old, good, proven stories being handled casually. When you have felt that wow genuinely before, you can tell the difference between a moment that grows naturally and one that is trying to borrow weight that it has not built on its own. That's why reactions feel sharper now. It's not entitlement, it's protectiveness. It's kind of a defense mechanism. Once you realize how easily feelings can be manufactured, you start guarding the memories that formed you in the first place. You don't want to lose them. That's why instead of open arms, audiences today have their guards up. They wait to see if the movie is going to earn the emotion it's reaching for, or if it's going to rush ahead and hope recognition does the work. And when that trust isn't earned for long enough, when you feel betrayed again and again, that wow that you once felt, it does not disappear. It gets buried deep inside a corner of your heart. You just can't get it out anymore. You become cautious. And that hesitation is what people mistake for cynicism. But it's not really just experience talking. Once you have felt that wonder deeply, you don't hand it over lightly anymore. I don't think I'm chasing old movies. That took me a while to admit. mostly because it's easier to say that you miss better art than to accept that a part of something that you miss belongs to a different version of you. Not because I was smarter or more imaginative, which I was, but because I hadn't learned yet how often excitement gets negotiated down by something safer. I had not learned how to manage expectations. I hadn't learned how the stories can promise more than they intend to deliver. So when Harry stepped into Hogsmeade for the first time and just stood there, my reaction was not to analyze. The world just opened up. The movie trusted the moment, and something inside of me responded without checking if it was a good idea. That wow didn't ask for permission. Now belief takes work, and not because I'm older and wiser, which I'm definitely not, but because experience leaves fingerprints. I have seen how wonder can be rushed, recycled, or used as leverage. And not every emotional cue intends to stay. So I watch differently, more guarded, more aware, maybe a little bit hopeful, just quieter about it, and frankly a little ashamed about it. And I think that's okay. Wonder doesn't belong exclusively to childhood, but childhood does make it easier. There's less distance between curiosity and trust, less fear that something you love will be mishandled or diluted or explained to death. The train that would take me to Hogwarts when I turn 11 was never gonna come. I know that. I know that now. But every time I press play on a movie now, some part of me still sits down expecting to feel that moment again. It does not have to be fireworks. It does not need to be shock. Just a feeling that my attention was earned and I was compensated well for paying attention. That is enough to keep me watching. I don't think movies used to be better. There's a lot of crap out there. And I still believe that movies can surprise me again as long as they're willing, sincere, and intentional. I'll be still here, waiting.